Astronauts to the moon.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to reality.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jaronism, back with another video for you today. A little follow-up on the Hawking situation. I brought some more evidence for people so that they can see why believing what we were taught and told about Mr. Hawking is probably not the smartest of moves. We're told he's a genius, but I mean, come on, the guy predicted things that would be released by black holes, like black body radiation known as Hawking radiation. And now, mind you, black holes have such a low temperature, according to the theory, that they are essentially impossible to observe, period. So to see one, you have to rely on indirect observations. What I'm getting at here is science is already in deep trouble. If you haven't seen the movie The Principle yet, you definitely need to see it. Science has basically backed itself into a corner, and yet we still allow theoretical physicists to speculate on things like black holes, all of which can be compared or equal to doublethink or doublespeak, along with black matter, dark energy, dark light, dark rift, quantum loops, gravity waves, and all these other pseudoscience basically peddled for research funds. And theoretical physicists are way past trouble area. They've created a world based on mathematics that doesn't conform with our reality. String theory and multiverse cannot be tested, yet we allow them in the category of science? Why? Who? I mean, the scientific method, remember? Just because something works on paper or is pretty doesn't mean it's real. They have allowed theories that cannot be tested or observed to be called science. And then the man dreaming of them can be called a genius. I mean, remember, no one has even ever observed an atom. So is this the new science, that anyone can just dream up a theory and that man can be called a genius and his untestable, unfalsifiable ideas can be called science? Well, science fans, flat Earth is actual true science. It can't be just dismissed because you have mathematical proof showing that other things can work. Can work doesn't mean is reality. Let's get a quote from that genius himself, Stephen Hawking.
Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing.
Oh, that was a real quote? Wasn't a joke? Oh, my bad. I'll take that rim shot back. Sorry about that. Now, for as wonderful as some find scientists and all, please remember that science has never made a blade of grass. And science says 95% of our world can't be observed. And science holds its dogmas so close and needs them to be true so bad that they will force their ideas and their thoughts and call it evidence. So on to Stephen Hawking. First off, he's lived longer than anyone else with ALS by a landslide. Obviously so much so that the official ALS site doesn't name him as a famous person with the disease, even though, besides Lou Gehrig himself, he's probably the most famous person with ALS. So, in his interviews, does he actually answer with his cheek as we're told? Does he use that cheek muscle? We will watch a little video here and find out how exactly is he communicating with these interviewers.
What would you say, Professor, has been your biggest accomplishment?
I am glad to have advanced our understanding of the Big Bang and black holes, the beginning and end of time. I almost said, to have shed light on black holes, but maybe that is a wrong metaphor.
Did you have this gift of knowledge as a child, or did you develop it? Were you a very brilliant kid?
All children ask questions. How do things work? Why are they the way they are? But as they grow up, they get told these questions are stupid, or that they don't have answers. I am just a child that has never grown up. I still keep asking these how and why questions. Occasionally, I find an answer,
How do you deal with the inevitability that one day you will lose your ability to communicate?
We all face the inevitability of death one day. While I'm alive, I will make sure I communicate one way or another.
Is there anywhere, Professor, in the world that you have not been that you would like to go, and why?
Where I would really like to go is not anywhere on Earth, but out in space. If I were someone like Bill Gates, I would hire the space shuttle. It would only cost a few $100 million.
What, Professor Hawking, do you consider the most important discovery of this millennium?
I think the invention of printing was a breakthrough for the human race. It meant that information and discoveries could be disseminated widely, and not just on a one-to-one basis, by word of mouth, or handwritten manuscript. It led to an ever-increasing rate of scientific and technological development. This has now made printing almost obsolete, and replaced it by the internet.
Now, notice here the three words at the very bottom of his speak and spell. It says, "It will change." Let's hear his answer to the next question.
What do you expect will be the biggest change in the way we'll live in the future?
I think genetic engineering with humans is going to occur, whether we like it or not. It will change our standard of what is human, but it will be a gradual change because there's so much we don't know, and because humans take time to grow up. We won't change much in the next 100 years, but we might after that.
What?
Now, I understand some people might have an excuse for this. I don't know what it could be. It might be that he pre-writes all his answers, or whatever it is. It's still a deception in what they're telling us is going on. They say that he's able to speak with his cheek muscle, and it happens in real time. But if you look at his little speak and spell there, he doesn't even have an option to put letters in. It's simply to speak a certain sentence, or jump back a sentence, or jump forward a sentence. So if you look at the very bottom, you'll see it says, "It is the background to all our," and we don't get to see it finished, but let's hear the answer to the next question.
Professor, is cosmology?
Cosmology is the study of the whole universe, its origin, evolution, and eventual fate. It is the background to all our lives.
What in your area of study, Stephen, do we know the least about?
We feel we are tantalizingly close to a complete unified theory, but we might be miles away, or barking up the wrong tree. If I had a wish, it would be to know whether we are on the right track.
What is a black hole?
A black hole is a region that is so warped by gravity that light cannot get out. Or at least, people thought that light could not get out of a black hole until I showed that the uncertainty principle of quantum mechanics allows light to leak out slowly. Some people call this Hawking radiation.
So earlier we saw at the bottom of the screen that he said we have good evidence the universe beginning about 15 billion years ago. So let's see if that has to do with his next answer. And I also see on the bottom there,
When, Professor, did the universe begin? And do you know when it'll end?
We have good evidence the universe began in a Big Bang, about 15 billion years ago. We are less certain how it will end, but recent observations suggest the universe will expand forever, at an ever-increasing rate.
Do you believe in life in other places, other planets?
Life appeared on Earth fairly soon after the Earth was formed. 4.5 billion years ago. That suggests that primitive life will appear spontaneously on any suitable planet. On the other hand, intelligent life seems...
Alright, and if we look at his little screen there, you'll see the top square bottom line says intelligent life seems very rare. And then below that you'll see a little rundown. I do not believe in a sixth sense. If you're talking about extrasensory perception, that does not remain consistent with my belief. And so hopefully you've been noticing that he's actually way ahead of the interviewer. So not sure if that means is he getting the questions ahead of time and typing out his answers. Whatever's being done, it's just another form of deception.
very rare. It has yet to be detected on Earth.
Do you believe in a sixth sense, a spirit world, another level of existence?
I do not believe in a sixth sense, if you mean extrasensory perception. That would not be consistent with my belief that the universe is governed by mathematical laws. Spiritual values belong to a different category to the physical universe.
What keeps you going? We all can see and are aware of your condition and how well you deal with it. What is that inner thing that keeps you going?
Curiosity. I want to know the answers. I enjoy life. I will keep going as long as I can. What else can anyone do?
And finally, happiness is relative, of course. Are you a happy man?
Yes.
Welcome to this very special edition of Larry King Now. My guest today needs little introduction. The world's most famous scientist and intellectual, a man of incomparable genius, Stephen Hawking. Stephen is Director of Research at the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics and founder of the Center for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge. He joins us today from the Starmus Festival in the Canary Islands. I last spoke to Stephen in 2010, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to pick his miraculous brain again. Stephen, when we last...
Now, you can argue with me if you want, but the man is clearly sleeping. He's absolutely sleeping at this point in the interview. Take a look for yourself.
Certainly have not become less greedy or less stupid. 6 years ago I was warning about pollution and overcrowding. They have gotten worse since then. The population has grown by 500 million since our last meeting, with no end in sight. At this rate, it will be 11 billion by 2100. Air pollution has increased over the past 5 years. More than 80% of inhabitants of urban areas are exposed to unsafe levels of air pollution.
Stephen, what's the biggest problem facing humanity today?
The increase in air pollution and the emission of increasing levels of carbon dioxide. Will we be too late to avoid dangerous levels of global warming?
You've been warning people about the dangers of artificial intelligence. How seriously are governments taking this warning?
Governments seem to be engaged in an AI arms race, designing planes and weapons with intelligent technologies. The funding for projects directly beneficial to the human race, such as improved medical screening, seems a somewhat lower priority.
What do you make of Ray Kurzweil's theories on singularity? Do you think we'll see man and machine become one?
I think that his views are both too simplistic and too optimistic. Exponential growth will not continue to accelerate. Something we don't predict will interrupt it. as has happened with similar forecasts in the past. And I don't think advances in artificial intelligence will necessarily be benign. Once machines reach the critical stage of being able to evolve themselves, we cannot predict whether their goals will be the same as ours.
Will artificial intelligence ever render human society as we know it obsolete?
Artificial intelligence has the potential to evolve faster than the human race. Beneficial AI could coexist with humans and augment our capabilities. But a rogue AI could be difficult to stop. We need to ensure that AI is designed ethically, with safeguards in place.
Stephen, how will it change us?
I believe beneficial artificial intelligence will permeate throughout every aspect of our society. Imagine algorithms able to quickly assess scientists' ideas, catch cancer earlier, and predict the stock markets. AI will impact our economies, our decision-making, and our lives.
What still mystifies you about the universe?
Why do the universe and all the laws of nature exist? Are they necessary? In one sense they are, because otherwise we wouldn't be here to ask the question. But is there a deeper reason?
Have any of your theories changed over the years? And if so, which ones?
40 years ago, I wrote a paper claiming that information about what fell into a black hole was lost forever. The paper aroused controversy, which has continued until the present. The consensus was that information about what fell in should be returned in the Hawking radiation given off by the black hole, but no one could suggest a mechanism. However, 2 colleagues and I discovered that the information is encoded on the horizon and will be returned.
What scientific discoveries have surprised even you over the years?
The most surprising was the discovery in 1998 that the rate of expansion of the universe is speeding up, rather than slowing down as had been expected. This is said to be dark energy, but this is just a name given to something we don't understand. In particular, we don't understand why it isn't either exactly zero, or very large, or whether it is constant as the universe expands.
You have defied so many odds to reach your age. No one has lived as long as you with ALS. Do you think about how and why that you're still here?
It's my commitment to science that has kept me going. There are questions I want to answer.
6 years ago, you told me the only thing you don't fully understand is women. Have you learned any more since we talked?
I have learned a lot about women since then.
It's always a pleasure to be with you and interview you, and I thank you for joining me.
All right, so honestly, didn't he look like he was sleeping for half that interview? It did to me. His cheek didn't even move, and yet he's talking and not looking at the screen, but whatever. And isn't it rude that somebody would say that it's because of their commitment to science that has allowed them to live longer than anyone else with ALS? I mean, what if somebody else had ALS and they had a commitment to cars or had a commitment to baseball cards? That doesn't count because it's not science? Does this not sound like a paid-for shill? How about the fact that when asked what's the biggest threat to humanity, of course, it's global warming. I'm sure that's exactly what he really feels.
To Garrick Israelian, he is the founding director of the Starmus Festival, is an astrophysicist at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. The former late Vice President of the United States, Hubert Humphrey, told me he asked once why we don't wonder more about the sea as we do about the sky. What'd you think of that?
I guess the sky is mysterious because we cannot reach the sky, so we cannot reach the stars. So it is in human nature. When you can touch something, when you can get close, then you somehow lose your interest. And that never happens with stars, and it never happens with universe. So everything is so distant, it's so mysterious, and so we think And I think it's normal that we think that this is probably the most mysterious things in nature. Stars, planets, galaxies, and also because somehow we realize that it's probably something that we can never understand, and we can never reach stars and or galaxies, and that makes it even more mysterious, more interesting.
When you study space, like black holes or planets or massive stars, what's that effect on the average citizen of the Earth?
Well, we learn physics of the universe. We learn laws that govern the nature, basically physics. And we also learn about our own evolution, because the evolution of Earth, and Earth is one of the billions of planets that exist in our galaxy. So basically, studying astronomy, we study the nature. And I would never separate, like say, biology or chemistry or other branches of science for astronomy by their importance, because they are, I think, everything is important in science. You can never put secondary branches of science that are secondary or primary. Everything is important.
Now hold on, time out. I won't say very often that something is a dumb statement, but that was a dumb-ass statement. So even though some science is Earth-focused, on things that impact our actual lives and our actual future, we aren't allowed to put those things ahead of the study and the exploration of Jupiter, a place you'll never go to, or the stars, or, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. I don't know why anybody would say that unless they're, I don't know, maybe a astronomer?
Dr. Israeli, and I thank you so much. You and Dr. Hawking have contributed so much to our knowledge of the world around us and above us.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you.
Here, Stephen Hawking is interviewed by John Oliver. So let's just listen in and see what kind of important genius-like statements come out of this little conversation.
First off, congratulations on being the first subject of our Great Mind series. Be honest, is this the single greatest honour you have ever received?
Yes.
Good. It's a little hard to read your tone of voice. When you say that, are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
I thought so. If there is one thing you want people to understand about your work, bearing in mind that most people will never understand anything about your work, what would that thing be?
Imaginary time. People think it's something you have in dreams, or when you're up against a deadline. But it's a well-defined concept. Imaginary time is like another direction in space. It's the one bit of my work science fiction writers haven't used, because they don't understand it.
Idiots. People are such idiots, because presumably, to my mind, you're simply talking about the theoretical measurement obtained from real time by a wink rotation of pi divided by 2 in a complex plane where t equals I times t. It's not that difficult to get your head around. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. In a recent op-ed column, you said, and I quote, "Success in creating artificial intelligence would be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last." Are you saying that robots are going to destroy humanity? And is that a scientific argument or the pitch for an amazing movie?
Artificial intelligence could be a real danger in the not-too-distant future. It could design improvements to itself and outsmart us all.
I know you're trying to get people to be cautious there, but why should I not be excited about fighting a robot?
You would lose.
Well, OK, for a start, we don't know that, do we? We don't know that for sure, because what could a robot do that I couldn't then fight back with by simply just unplugging him, right?
There's a story that scientists built an intelligent computer. The first question they asked it was, "Is there a God?" The computer replied, "There is now," and a bolt of lightning struck the plug, so it couldn't be turned off.
Holy shit, that's the most terrifying story I've ever heard.
Yes.
Hold on. Who is talking to me right now? Is it you, or is it a sentient computer pretending to talk on your behalf?
It's me.
Yeah, but how do I know that, Professor? Because if computers had become sentient, what better way to convince people they hadn't than by co-opting the voice of the most intelligent man on the planet?
You're an idiot.
Yeah, but who's saying that, Stephen? You or the machine?
Both of us.
OK, all right. mean, that's actually quite reassuring. You've stated that you believe there could be an infinite number of parallel universes. Does that mean that there is a universe out there where I am smarter than you?
Yes, and also a universe where you're funny.
Okay, all right. Look, if you're so smart, what number am I thinking
13.
of? It was 13. I was thinking of 13. Okay, that was a lucky guess. What am I thinking right now?
That you've been a huge disappointment for your family.
I wasn't thinking that. Why would I think that? No, I'm trying as hard as I can. Why is that so hard for them to understand, hypothetically? I wasn't thinking that. Let's do some quick yes or no questions. Are the following things technically possible? Life on other planets, is that theoretically possible?
Yes.
Okay, what about a Schwarzschild wormhole?
Yes.
Okay, what about this? Me going on a date with Charlize Theron?
No.
Not at all. In no universe?
No.
In none of the infinite universes does that happen?
No.
It's completely beyond the bounds of scientific possibility, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Quick follow-up question. In any of those potential universes, am I the one rejecting her, and that's why it doesn't work out?
No. You do realize that typing a response is difficult for me, correct?
Okay, sure, yeah. It's just I'm trying to play this out because I'm just trying to see if there was any hypothetical hope.
No.
It doesn't matter. But never say never. Okay, if time travel were possible, would you want to go back in time and refuse to do this interview?
Yes.
You truly are an incredibly smart man.
13, huh? Of all numbers, 13. Now, I'm not saying that the bit wasn't funny, or that people can't have a little fun. It's just for somebody who is obviously hard to book, who does so few speaking engagements in the first place, it appears that John Oliver had no problem booking him for what was a completely worthless interview, in which his jokes were written for him, and they cut and edit it like they do all his interviews. Math Powerland from the NASA channel did a great little piece on the impossibility of booking him. Funny piece, here's a little snippet, and his video is linked below in the description.
Have you ever done a booking of his? Because it says you guys are like a booking agent, and I'm trying to find, for the life of me, I can't find any engagements. But I mean, I see the guy on TV every few months or few weeks, but I mean, it's just, I found it interesting that he's like such, I like to hear him talk.
Yeah, I understand. Some people just don't, take speaking engagements. So I'm not sure about that, but you would definitely, might want to reach out if he posted on any websites or any social media accounts that he might have.
Yeah, no, I don't see anything. But then it's like funny, he's on The Simpsons, or he's like, on a late night talk show, but it's like, when can we see him live, talking?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I love to hear him speak.
Right, of course.
Ha! I like to hear him talk. That's classic. Now, some people have said that I didn't correctly critique Mr. Hawking's laser experiment on the lake, and some saying that you don't need to include the height of the observer when doing the calculation of the amount of drop, or that I drew lines that were at the wrong angle. So I'll say this. The experiment that Hawking did was Hawking garbage. There was no tape measure used to measure the actual laser height of the boat, and the laser was never even leveled. Look at this picture here. That laser should be pointing, or is pointing, directly into the water. So the fact that they could even do any experiment after that setup tells you that the whole thing's a fraud. It doesn't work. It would destroy all the data they had, even if the laser was 1 inch off in either direction. It's just going to grow exponentially. So, I say again, if anyone thinks that 24 feet of water would be hidden in 6 miles of distance, enough that you could fit a helicopter behind it, I mean, let's take it to the test. I'll bet you that we could put a 10-foot green poster board on the shore 6 miles away, and with a telescope 3 feet high, we'd see that green board, which would 1, prove that Hawking's experiment was a total fraud, and 2, prove to you that there is no curvature of the earth. Alright, I'm going to leave you with a few quotes and a few lines from Plato's The Commonwealth, book number 7. And remember, Plato, his teacher was Socrates, and his student was Aristotle. And they basically say he laid the very foundations of Western philosophy, science, and mathematics. So pay attention to what's being said here. It's not quote mining, it's straight from his book. And you decide for yourself what is being said and could it be taken and used in a different way. Starting at line 27, arithmetic has a very great and elevating effect, compelling the soul to reason about abstract number and rebelling against the introduction of visible or tangible objects into the argument. Number 28. Numbers can only be realized in thought, necessitating, as it clearly does, the use of pure intelligence in the attainment of pure truth. 29. Those who have a natural talent for calculation are generally quick at every other kind of knowledge. 30. Geometry is taught and used in a narrow and ridiculous manner, of squaring and extending and applying and the like, confusing the necessities of geometry with those of daily life, whereas knowledge is the real object of the whole science. The knowledge at which geometry aims is knowledge of the eternal, and not of anything perishing and transient. 31. The proper teaching of geometry will draw the soul towards truth and create the spirit of philosophy, and raise up that which is now wrongly directed downwards. And lastly, 32. The proper teaching of astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another. Well, I hate to tell you that when we're talking about what is fact and what is reality, it's this world that matters, not any other. So, till next time, guys, be kind to one another, don't lie to each other, and open up your mind. There's truth inside. Till next time, this has been Journalism. Peace!
Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us. On the weekday, you can see the signs, you can see the signs. They wear the disguise. Look into the mind's eye. There's nowhere to hide.
Astronauts to the moon.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to reality.
What's going on, everyone? It's Journalism, back with another video for you today. A little follow-up on the Hawking situation. I brought some more evidence for people so that they can see why believing what we were taught and told about Mr. Hawking is probably not the smartest of moves. We're told he's a genius, but I mean, come on, the guy predicted things that would be released by black holes, like black body radiation known as Hawking radiation. And now, mind you, black holes have such a low temperature, according to the theory, that they are essentially impossible to observe, period. So to see one, you have to rely on indirect observations. What I'm getting at here is science is already in deep trouble. If you haven't seen the movie The Principle yet, you definitely need to see it. Science has basically backed itself into a corner. Mathematical proof showing that other things can work. Can work doesn't mean is reality. Let's get a quote from that genius himself, Stephen Hawking.
Because there is a law, such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing.
Oh, that was a real quote? Wasn't a joke? Oh, my bad. I'll take that rim shot back. Sorry about that. Now, for as wonderful as some find scientists and all, please remember that science has never made a blade of grass. And science says 95% of our world can't be observed. And science holds its dogmas so close and needs them to be true so bad that they will force their ideas and their thoughts and call it evidence. So on to Stephen Hawking. First off, he's lived longer than anyone else with ALS by a landslide. Obviously so much so that the official ALS site doesn't name him as a famous person with the disease, even though, besides Lou Gehrig himself, he's probably the most famous person with ALS. So, in his interviews, does he actually answer with his cheek as we're told? Does he use that cheek more? And yet we still allow theoretical physicists to speculate on things like black holes, all of which can be compared or equal to doublethink or doublespeak, along with black matter, dark energy, dark light, dark rift, quantum loops, gravity waves, and all these other pseudoscience basically peddled for research funds. And theoretical physicists are way past trouble area. They've created a world based on mathematics that doesn't conform with our reality. String theory and multiverse cannot be tested, yet we allow them in the category of science? Why? Who? I mean, the scientific method, remember? Just because something works on paper or is pretty doesn't mean it's real. They have allowed theories that cannot be tested or observed to be called science. And then the man dreaming of them can be called a genius. I mean, remember, no one has even ever observed an atom. So is this the new science, that anyone can just dream up a theory and that man can be called a genius and his untestable, unfalsifiable ideas can be called science? Well, science fans, flat Earth is actual true science. It can't be just dismissed because you have
Find an answer.
How do you deal with the inevitability that one day you will lose your ability to communicate?
We all face the inevitability of death one day. While I'm alive, I will make sure I communicate one way or another.
Is there anywhere, Professor, in the world that you have not been that you would like to go, and why?
Where I would really like to go is not anywhere on Earth, but out in space. If I were someone like Bill Gates, I would hire the space shuttle. It would only cost a few $100 million.
What, Professor Hawking, do you consider the most important discovery of this millennium?
I think the invention of printing was a breakthrough for the human race. It meant that information and discoveries could be disseminated widely, and not just on a one-to-one basis, by word of mouth, or handwritten manuscript. It led
Russell, we will watch a little video here and find out how exactly is he communicating with these interviewers.
What would you say, Professor, has been your biggest accomplishment?
I am glad to have advanced our understanding of the Big Bang and black holes, the beginning and end of time. I almost said to have shed light on black holes, but maybe that is a wrong metaphor.
Did you have this gift of knowledge as a child, or did you develop it? Were you a very brilliant kid?
All children ask questions. How do things work? Why are they the way they are? But as they grow up, they get told these questions are stupid, or that they don't have answers. I'm just a child that has never grown up. I still keep asking these how and why questions. Occasionally, I